Hello everyone. In this particular video, I have tried to discuss what are the simple tricks that I have used in all my previous attempts and in this attempt to clear CSAT with a comfortable margin. In this particular video, we will try to discuss the various ways in which we shall approach the paper rather than solving each and every individual question. So without further ado, this is the first thing that I get. Okay, so this is a set A paper and we get certain questions. So the first step is to skim the question paper. Now, how do you do that? First you see, okay, there is one passage, there is another passage, and in every passage there is only one question which has been asked. So based on this, I am starting to create a mind map that says that, okay, this is the first passage, there is another passage, and if I am fast enough, I will also be able to register that it is asking about the most rational, practical and immediate action required. So if you see and if you have solved a number of passages, you can even skim that it is talking about the action required. In this particular passage, it is talking about the implication of the passage. Similarly, if you move forward, you will register one more passage is there in which it is talking about the message conveyed by the author. So it will either be the crux of the passage or the message of the passage or the inference which can be drawn or the assumption that can be made based on the passage. So starting from question number 1, I will fastly skim through every question and I will see, okay, first there are 3 passages, one question based on each. Then there is some questions of mathematics. Moving forward, some more passages are there. And again the trend is the same, that with every passage there is one question related and it's a very small passage. Hardly 4, 5, 6 lines are there and based on it, it is asking the messages. And there are some quant questions here. Right now I am not going into the difficulty of the questions or I am not trying to solve the questions. I am simply having a look of the various questions. Again the same trend is continuing, that 6, 7, 8 lines are there and one question is there based off the crux of the passage or the assumption of the passage, some things like this. Then there are certain questions of quant which are skimmed all over and so on. So we have to do this exercise for the first 5 to 6 minutes. I suggest that you do this. Why? Because if you do this exercise for the first 5 minutes, you will get a very good idea that what are the various kind of questions that have been asked, and you will have a mind map ready with you that this year the reading comprehensions are a bit lesser in length and one question in most of the comprehensions, only one question has been asked. And again if you go through, you will see that there are so many questions that have come from mathematics. Okay, now I am not going into the difficulty of this paper, I am just seeing, okay, one more passage is there, one more passage is there, and this is another passage in which 2 questions have been asked. Okay, so and another passage in which 1 question. So in this way I will go through all the questions and then I will try to reach the end of the paper. When I reach the end of the paper, and I will tell you that do not spend more than 5 minutes or at max 6 minutes on this, because if you spend more time on this, then you will have lesser time left for the paper. So by this I am going to skim all the passages, all the questions that are there. Okay, all the quant questions are there. Okay, and then I will move forward and reach the end of the question paper, which says that there are certain sequences there, this is there, again certain passages are there, and in the end I will say that, okay, there are certain questions are there. Now what happened with me is in the first few minutes, or rather the first 1 hour, I was able to solve only 6 to 7 questions, because the problem that we all face, most of us are engineers, so we think that our quant is very strong, which may be the case. But the problem that we face is in this paper, the quant was not of the marking level. Means generally it is expected that we should know the quant of level 10th or the basic numeracy. But these questions were very difficult. Some may even argue this was of the CAT level or even more than that. So when you are faced with such a paper and you have made a mental picture, I would suggest you start with reading comprehension. But I myself didn't do that. I started with mathematics and in only 30 minutes I was able to solve 6, 7 or rather 8 questions. Here's where the experience and the course correction comes in. You know that you will not be able to complete the paper. So what is the cutoff? The cutoff is 66.67 for this paper out of 200. So what is the number of comfortable questions? I would say you need to comfortably solve at least 45 to 50 questions with a high accuracy, so that even with negative marking you will be able to clear this cutoff. Now, how to do it? How to do the passages? Okay, so I will start with a very simple one question here. In this passage, let us see first what is it talking about. Before reading the passage, first read the question. In this particular passage, I will zoom it for you. In this particular passage, it is asking that based on the above passage, which one is the following terms best expresses the ultimate goal of the state? It seems like a GS question rather than a passage of CSAT, but that is what it is. So I will start reading the passage with the question in mind that I have to give one ultimate goal of the state based on this passage. So the last end of the state is not to dominate men nor to restrain them by fear. Rather, it is so free each man from fear that he may live and act with full security and without injury to himself. The end of the state, I repeat, is not to make rational beings into brute beasts and machines. By reading this much only, we can say that it is talking about liberty. But let us read further. It is to enable their bodies and their minds to function safely. It is to lead men to live by and to exercise to a free reason, that they may not waste their strength in hatred, anger and guile, nor act unfairly towards one another. So this particular passage definitely talks about liberty. Now you would say, sir, you have taken a very simple example. So let me show you another example of how you should particularly face a passage. Now here is another passage. Now before reading the passage, what is the first rule that I told you? Before reading the passage, first read the question. In this particular passage, the question asks which of the following statement most likely reflects as to what the author intends to say. Means it is asking about the summary or the crux or the core idea behind the passage. Let us read the passage. In India, while the unemployment rate is a frequently used measure of poor performance of the economy under conditions of rising school and college enrollment, it paints an inaccurate picture. So here the author is trying to say something conflicting, that on one hand we have a unemployment rate which is higher, but there is nobody who is talking about the rising school and college enrollment, because generally the two are correlated with each other. The reported unemployment rate is dominated by the experience of younger Indians who face higher unemployment challenges and exhibit greater willingness to wait for the right job than their old peers. The unemployment challenge is greater for people with secondary or higher education, and rising education levels inflate unemployment challenges. Okay, so now I will first see the question which I have already seen, that is asking about the core idea of the passage. So in the first point it is saying enrollment in schools and colleges is high but there is no quality education. May be correct. Unemployment must be seen as a function of rising education and aspirations of young Indians. Maybe. There are no labor intensive industries to accommodate the huge number of unemployment people. Now nowhere it is talking about a labor intensive or a capital intensive industry. Here in the passage it is talking about the unemployment rate and why it is high vis-a-vis the rising school and college enrollment. Okay, so I would say this is wrong. The education system should be properly designed so as to enable the educated people to be self-employed. Now again this seems correct, but in the entire paragraph there is no talk about self-employment or employment generation. So I would say this is also not correct. Now we are left with two more options. One of them talks about the enrollment in schools and colleges is high but there is no quality education, and another says unemployment must be seen as a function of rising education and aspiration of young Indians. You cannot say this particular thing because there are further factors of unemployment which is there. Definitely it is dominated by the experience of younger Indians, but it is not the only case. So I would suggest the most correct option is enrollment in schools and colleges is high but there is no quality education. Now it is not about whether the answer is correct or not. It is about how you are approaching the questions and how frequently you can skip from one question to the next. So in the end I would discuss a few key pointers which would help you in doing this. First point, which we already discussed, is skim the paper. Try to read how many questions have come from quant, from logical reasoning, from reading comprehension. Second is, first read what is asking, means what is the question that has been asked based on the reading comprehension. Third is, you have to keep switching. Don't go with a prejudiced mind that I have a strong quant and I will be able to do all the maths question. Please don't do that. So keep switching. Whenever you are unable to do a quant question, switch to reading comprehension. If you are unable to do it, switch to logical reasoning. But don't get stuck on one question. Then fourth point is, maths questions, do the rough work very neatly, so that if you are stuck at this point in one particular question and you again come back, you are able to pick it up from that point. You do not waste certain time. Next point, never panic. Practice as much as possible. This is to be done before the paper, not during the paper. So you have to practice more and more questions with as much accuracy as you can develop. Now, how to do that? For reading comprehension, I will suggest you should read the editorials and the non-fictional books and certain journals such as Nature and EPW. Reading this will not only help you in GS portion, but it will also help you in the knack of reading comprehensions from various aspects or various dimensions. It helped me a lot. Again, you need to practice questions with certain more importance to probability and permutation and combination, probability and number theory. This doesn't mean that you do not need to do the other questions, but you should give particular importance to these questions because these need a lot of practice. Don't try to guess the pattern of UPSC. Please do not do this. UPSC may ask certain times more questions from logical reasoning or quant, or they may increase the level which we have seen this year, or they may love to give some easy reading comprehensions or easy to do reading comprehensions which we have seen this year. So don't go with a prejudiced mind. And the last thing which I would say is, give equal respect to GS2 vis-a-vis GS1. We have seen the rising difficulty of CSAT in the last few years. So give a test at least 15 days, once in 15 days of CSAT, and try to strengthen your logical reasoning, reading comprehension and quant. I know this particular is Achilles heel, especially for the students who are from non-engineering or non-mathematical background, but you cannot expect to clear this paper without having a strong hold on it. Again, there is 1 year of time is left. Please try to solve these questions, build a knack for it, develop your reading habits and go with an open mind. I think all this will definitely help you in going over this magical number. Hope this video was of a bit help to you. If you like this video, please definitely share it with your friends and subscribe the channel so that I can bring out more such videos for you. Thank you.